She doesn't even go here.
I'm bi, actually.
Excuse me. Could the ugly, untalented gays please report to the principal's office?
Hi, I'm Kurt Hummel, and I'll be auditioning for the role of kicker.
Hello! Welcome to Not So Straight Nerds. I am your host, Luke.
And I'm your other host, Alicia.
And today we have a very exciting conversation to have about the A24 film, Warfare.
It's very good. It's
It
got
was-
good word of mouth so far. Once people have actually seen it, everyone's pretty much, critics, audiences, everyone's like, this is great, you should go see it. Especially in the theaters.
Yes.
You're not going to get the same experience watching it at home. Like, out of all three movies that came out this weekend, this is
was
the
the one to
theatrical.
see.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So this was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say it's a very intense movie.
It is. Like
There's
all
gore,
war
there's
movies.
gore movies. There's war movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say definitely for like our modern generation, I think that this is a very extreme and a very real movie.
Yeah.
So I think even when I was telling people today at my like place of employment, I definitely don't want to give off the impression that this is a movie that everyone can watch in theaters. It's very
No.
intense,
Mm-hmm.
and I think definitely
Hard to stomach.
for most people, you definitely need to make sure you're in a place where you can be comfortable experiencing some really real and really
Yes.
horrible things.
Very gory, very very intense, a lot of things to make you really like grit your teeth a little bit and your stomach's a little ugh.
Yeah.
So which I mean, yeah, it is, you know that it's going to be dark going into a war movie, but like this is a little different because of the gore, I would say.
Yeah, and I would say it's a lot more recent. Like
Yeah.
most people, I would even go as far to say almost everyone in the U.S. knows someone who has been a part of this war.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is a
Yeah.
really real thing to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be really interesting to get into that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of a warning that we are talking about modern warfare. Specifically, this movie is a very realistic look at the Iraq-U.S. war.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is triggering, possibly, it does cover some really gritty and harsh details about that. So if that's not your thing, we have a lot of other episodes you can catch.
Yes.
So, but besides that, it is a really well-made movie
I agree.
that I'm very happy came along.
Yeah.
So,
Very happy to talk about too, or excited to talk about it.
So real quick before we completely skip over it into our conversation about movies, how's the vibes? How's your vibe check?
I feel good. I've had a really easy day today. I thought I was gonna have a long day of work, and I went to work for like an hour, but still got paid for more than that. So it was great.
We love that.
I'm in a good mood. I'm a little tired though, cause
Hard day at work?
Well, no, it's just like one of those days when you do nothing, you feel tired because you've just, rotted on the couch all day. So I like need to do something. I mean, this is like fine, but I feel like sitting down, I'm going to need to like move a little bit. I'm going to get a little bit restless.
TikTok emotions as you're talking.
Yeah. Well, maybe not about this
Not
film,
TikTok.
but
Okay, good point. Good
so
point.
Getting
Right.
it out now in the
Right,
vibe check.
right, yeah.
Right, and then we're going to like bring it in.
Well, we could we could always do that when we talk about the intro to this movie.
Sure.
Boom. Bah, bah. Anyways, my vibe check. I'm super excited. I had a pretty busy day, so I'm very excited to kind of chill out and just kind of talk about this really awesome movie. And we have Roxy, our manager, here. She's a little loud
If
today.
I ever laugh, it's her fault, I promise you. I'm probably looking down while I'm laughing because she's in a playful mood right now. So,
And the other day we were watching back, I think it was our Snow White episode
yeah.
on YouTube, and we were
She was
looking
up
at when
here.
Roxy was up on the bed right behind Alicia. And Alicia just didn't even notice how close that she was to her.
She was like sniffing my elbow, and I was like either not aware or I didn't care. I never looked at her, so I don't know. But I'm the one who has to live with her,
It was
so.
very funny to watch, and we just never acknowledged her being there.
Nope.
And that was back whenever we were bad at getting most of the bed out of the frame, so she was just right
there. Like this whole area that you probably can't even see my hand right now because I don't think it's in frame
Yeah,
anymore.
we've gotten better at centering, so look at us grow.
We're, it's in the early stages. Like your first year, you know, we're gonna learn a lot. So I'm excited. Yeah.
So getting into our conversation about warfare for
Can
those.
I do the non-spoiler or the summary?
Yeah, go for it.
I wanted to, is that all you were gonna do?
That is exactly
Okay,
what I was
cool.
going to do. Way to take
Cool.
the wind out of my sails.
So, and feel free to add anything too. I'm just gonna read what you wrote. So, a summary of this movie. It was written and directed by Iraq War veteran Ray Mendoza, and then also Alex Garland worked on the film. He did Civil War, 28 Days Later. I would compare like Civil War to this movie just because they're war movies, not anything else. But like you've probably seen that most recently.
I think you can feel the style from that movie, but
Yeah.
this is. I've
Way
seen people
different.
say that this is what a lot of people expected from that movie.
Yes.
And therefore, this is
Absolutely.
a much better movie.
I do think this is a much better movie. And I feel like for those who have seen both, kind of agree. Anyways, Warfare embeds audiences with a platoon of American Navy SEALs on a surveillance mission gone wrong in insurgent territory. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to say insurgent for like divergent stuff, but then it was, sometimes that's not how the actual word is pronounced. Anyways, it's a visceral, boots-on-the-ground story of modern warfare and brotherhood told like never before, in real time, and based on the memory of the people who lived it. So that was big in the marketing for this movie. Was like at some point they even said every 30 seconds you watch is 30 seconds they actually lived and experienced in this movie, which is fascinating to me. And I think that's a very unique way of taking on a war film. It does limit a few things. Like I know I've seen some complaints on what it covers, what it leaves out. But at the end of the day, that's one of the limitations to a film like this. When you have just this perspective and you are so clearly telling audiences that's what this is, you cannot expect anything else from that.
And it's the whole
I don't think
point
it
of this
needed it,
movie.
but it wasn't pretending to be something it wasn't.
That's true. I
Yeah.
think this movie, it's literally written from the perspective of someone that was there,
Right.
written around the perspective of everyone, at least on the U.S. side that was
Right.
there. They do have some Iraqi civilians in the story, so I would be surprised to hear if they got interviewed on this. I would very
Probably
much
not.
doubt that.
So
And I
they probably
think-
wouldn't want to, even
Yeah,
if they
that's a
did
whole
reach
part of
out.
that as well.
So
But I think this is definitely aimed to be about what these soldiers experienced in this very mission. And they're the one, and the director and writer on this, at least half of that team, was here living it. So
right.
I think you can't just look at him and be like, tell the story different. And it's like, no,
Right,
this
'cause it
is his story.
And if that's something you don't want to watch, then don't watch it. But know that going in, and they have told you that going in. So they've never said, this is going to be, multiple takes on this one event. That's not what this is. They never said that's what this is. So just be aware if that's something you're interested in. So,
Yeah, and then I think it's also really interesting. We were reading on the drive home from this movie some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and kind of some just basic articles about this movie. What was really interesting is that Ray Mendoza, the Iraqi war veteran who is in the movie as
Yes.
a character in the movie, he met Alex Garland on the set of Civil War because he worked as a stuntman for that movie. And then that's where he told Alex Garland the story of this mission and about the movie is dedicated to one of the characters within it named Elliot. He basically said that Garland was really moved by this story and they wanted to work together to make it into a full-on movie and retelling of their story. And it was, I think the original idea was that they were asking all these questions and trying to kind of put a timetable together for Elliot, because
Right.
Elliot is a big part of this story and this mission.
yes, absolutely.
And they reveal at the very end that he doesn't even remember the mission. Actually, I don't know if they reveal it, but in an article
is when you told
it was
me.
saying that he doesn't even remember anything because of the mission. And I think, honestly, that is good for him.
Yeah,
for
maybe
sure,
for the
'cause that
best. Oh.
because the stuff that we see
Heavy
just
story.
the actor go through, like that's some pretty harsh stuff.
And it's understandable how that could happen. That happens a fair amount for what I hear, for what I understand about traumatic events, and this is sure one of them.
And I think this is also a really important place to mention this, that we are not military. We don't know what it's like to be in these war zones. We can only kind of hear what we're told and what we see from this movie, which is it is definitely being pitched as one of the most authentic looks at modern warfare.
Right.
And I think to me as a civilian, I really get that impression a lot.
Yeah.
From this.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is we're only talking about this one perspective because it didn't give us anything else. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. So we definitely, I think it's important to just remember, we may not be completely right on some of the things that we kind of say. All we have is what we're given and kind of anything we might have had going in. I do come from a family that has a lot of people go into the military. I had my dad and my stepdad both served in that war, so I know plenty of people, a lot of family friends that also served in this war, and so I know that they have known a lot of people who also didn't come back. So I will say, watching this movie personally was a really emotional ride for me. Just imagining kind of the people that I know who had to go through, maybe not necessarily this, because I don't believe I know anyone who is a SEAL, but I know most of the people I knew were in intelligence and were pilots.
Yeah.
So, but still, just being around that, you can only imagine, and this is the closest glimpse that I've gotten into what that must have been like for them. So, it was such a fascinating experience for me to really kind of be able to just capture a glimpse of what so many people that I've known, like growing up and looked up to, have gone through. So for me, this movie was really special in that regard.
Yeah. Very nice.
So
do you want to get to pros and cons?
Absolutely. Do you mind if I kick us off?
Absolutely. And this is still non-spoiler. We'll let you know when we get into that.
We are still non-spoiler. So one of the strongest pieces of this whole movie, I think, is the cast. It has a very robust combination of some really young, and I would say some up and coming, some pretty established talent.
Yeah.
I think they bring a lot of people who've done a lot of different types of projects, and I don't know if I've seen any of them do this kind of like hardcore, grounded realism performance before. And I think a lot of this whole movie is just so focused on professionals in a mission, but they're real people and they're young men. So just the idea that they are these young men who left their normal lives behind to come and be professionals and put their lives on the line. I think this movie does really good in showing that they actively are like switching into soldier mode.
Yeah. You
so
see
that they can
so
survive
much.
and keep everyone else in their troop alive. I think that all of the actors do really great in that regard.
I agree. They do a great job at showing that they're so human. Like, they can be in the atmosphere of war, like in the house that they're in, but they're still joking and joking and joking. But then the second something happens, they're all locked in.
Everything switched.
And I think that's very interesting because, of course, I mean, they are human and soldier, but it's I don't know. I just feel like this showed that really well. And sometimes in other war movies, they're just constantly in the war, and so you don't get to see as much of their human self. You only see the soldier self. And so I think that's so important to see that these are real people, and they're not just, impenetrable, if that, I guess.
Yeah,
if that
they're
makes
not
sense. Like,
an invincible force, and they know that.
They know that. And you even see at some point, you see this leader who does really well at leading people and like thinking quickly, and then something happens and he just shuts down. And it's so, it's done so well, and it's so like, I don't even know how to
And
explain it.
a lot of the characters you can tell because there's one. Most of the movie has this one group, and then they kind of reconvene with another group.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that the group that stays there is just going through so much throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And you see them start making mistakes and start
Yeah.
getting completely worn down by the experiences that they're going through. And it doesn't feel at all like, oh my gosh, they need to be doing this or
No,
they
no.
need, like, they just aren't in it. The movie does a really good job about making, like, putting us into the mission. Like, you can see what's happening and very much understand why
this happened,
they're
how
taking
the shift
so
happened.
much time, why they got to where they were. And it's some pretty
Yeah.
drastic shifts for some of these characters who are going, something big happens, and then suddenly they just are so, like, off-put from where they were. And it's all done really well. And I think a huge part of that is, and also I know I mentioned cast, we'll get more into, once we get into the spoiler, we'll get more into all of the cast members.
Yes.
I will go
Little
ahead and just say
breakdown.
some of the biggest names that are attached here are Joseph Quinn, who's going to be in Fantastic Four. He was also in Stranger Things 4 and Quiet Place Day 1.
Yes.
Will Poulter, Just in Death of a Unicorn, We're the Millers, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, great talent. Charles Melton, who was recently
May, December.
on the awards circuit for May, December, also popularized from Riverdale.
Yes.
Kit Connor from
Heartstopper.
Heartstopper and the Rocket Man movie for a little bit, little Elton.
A little bit.
And then most fascinating, which I can't wait to talk about, is Michael Gandolfini, who is currently a supporting character in Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah.
So a lot of familiar faces
and
for
we
us.
have not been his biggest fans in that show, but
Here,
better
all
here.
of these actors
So,
really step up for
I
this
agree.
movie.
And we'll get to more,
really great.
like we said, specifics
So,
later.
but we'll get.
yeah.
Oh, and then also Cosmo Jarvis. He
Yeah.
was made popular from the Shogun television show on Hulu.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So a great cast. They come from really different projects, and they're
Mm-hmm.
known for some really different things. Then they all come together to make this really
Mm-hmm.
strong, grounded ensemble. Just really awesome.
And they just just seems so natural, and it's so fascinating. That's another big part of the marketing is you see them as a family. You see the cast as a family. They're always doing interviews together. They keep posting pictures how they got tattoos together, like matching tattoos, and that's really cool because it doesn't, even if it is just marketing, it doesn't feel like just marketing. It feels very authentic. It does feel like they bonded, and I think that worked really well for this movie, and that's just
Well, and
fascinating
another thing
to
that I
see.
think goes into that is that there was some rigorous training for these cast
Yeah.
members. They had to train like Navy SEAls
I think
to
I
get into
saw
shape
that.
for this movie because they were basically completely recreating all of the things that the actual SEALs had to do for this mission, carrying, I think they said up to 150 pounds of like materials and
I believe
supplies
it.
on their back and doing all of these maneuvers and
I kept thinking
Man.
about that the whole movie is I would just be so overwhelmed carrying that much stuff. Everything is so bulky, and
then
you
when
just have
and then
so
it's
much
just so
like.
fascinating when they're saying we need this. Oh, this pocket on this
This pocket.
side.
And sometimes it takes them like 2 seconds, but you can see that thought process of like, oh, I'm finding, like, it's almost like you can visually see them mapping out their backpack of where they put it. It's so great. All the choices made in this movie are just
Yeah,
mind-blowing.
they also don't lean away from a lot of military jargon,
yeah.
which I think some people are saying it. I think some criticism. There's not a lot of criticism
Right.
for people who've seen the movie.
Right.
I've seen some people say that it's a choice to lean into using military jargon, and that potentially it could make the civilians who are watching this movie become lost or not understand it. I don't understand, or I can kind of assume and pick up on context clues on what these
Yeah.
things mean.
Yeah.
I don't think that the choice of that gets lost anywhere. So
At least from my point of view, everything we needed to know, I figured out because of context clues and like putting that together with whatever they were saying.
yeah, and they definitely. I saw an interview saying that they kept the jargon in. A huge part of this movie was that this was a movie about veterans, made by veterans, for veterans.
Yeah.
And so I think.
That would have been really special for them, absolutely.
Yeah,
Or at
and-
least I hope so.
And a part of that was also Ray Mendoza, the director and writer, the veteran in the movie. You'll probably hear us say that over and over again because I think that's really important to the story of this movie.
Yeah.
because it is the story of this movie.
It's his
But-
story.
There's often people from this war who have struggled to kind of find their place and fit back into American society after these experiences, that he wanted this to kind of be a movie that they didn't have to like bend over backwards to fit into and find like value. I know he talked a lot about how this movie was very therapeutic for the people involved in making it, the people who went through this mission and kind of reliving and kind of, I guess, processing and healing from how traumatic and just how much this mission was to all the people involved. I think it really highlights what like the value of art and like what these kind of projects can do for people and what it can speak to a population and what people have in common. And I think it can be really uniting. I think it can be really illuminating to people who haven't had that experience. Like I said, I haven't had that experience, but I know so many people who have been in that experience or adjacent to that experience. So I think all around this is, I would probably go so far as to say like a triumph, especially compared to the movie year that we've had. But I don't know. It feels
it's like
it feels like I would say it's an achievement.
I agree. It really feels like it feels very special because that's the whole, at the end of the day, the whole point of art is to connect people. And sometimes that means telling people's real stories. Sometimes that means connecting to people through themes or messages or whatever is happening on screen. So it's really special. I like watching films where it's based off a real person's story, because especially when it's done well. Like, I mean, he was heavily involved, so I'd imagine it was very accurate and done well. But that is very special, and I'm glad it was made, because people like that, they deserve to have their stories told, and I think that should happen more often. So of all different kinds of people, and like not just military, like everywhere, but yeah, definitely here is great.
Yeah, I think this was a really special one. So another great thing that we both really took away from this movie was the sound design of it. I think there's so many great things going for this movie. We're going to get into it later, but I'm just going to go ahead and go on the record. If this movie gets nominated for anything around the awards circuit, I think it should be sound.
Absolutely.
Because the sound design is just so chilling.
Phenomenal.
And so creates such a tension even when nothing's happening. You can just so tell that these men are just waiting for the shoe to drop, and then until it does, you can just feel being on edge with them. And
I want to say the editing too with that.
yes, I think those go pretty hand
that
in hand.
also creates a lot of tension. So
Yeah, I think both are done really beautifully, but the sound
sound
I
more
remember
than
the
anything.
sound so vividly.
Me too.
I remember there was a scene where it kind of flashes between the people in the house, because this whole mission takes place in a house. The people occupy a civilian home with the civilians inside of it, and that's where this whole movie takes place. There's a shot where it just kind of flashes between all of the different SEALs in the different rooms. Some of them are doing mission-related stuff. Some of them are just kind of existing and waiting for their next order or thing to do. And it's just, you like hear like the crinkle of like water that they're drinking. And then I remember so vividly hearing someone like rub and like scratch their like buzz-cutted head, and like that sound was just like as soon as I heard that sound, I remember being
Oscar.
like, oh my gosh,
This gotta win
is
something.
going to be insane sound.
I agree.
And then whenever the actual like combat starts, it's just so like chilling and shocking. And there's that one big blast that happens in the movie, and the fallout and the choices that they make with the sound there is just so well done, and you can feel the disorientation that they feel, and it's all horrifying. And
Because I remember thinking in that scene when it first went off, and everyone was, of course, really slow to get up because a bomb just went off right by you. Of course, like, you're disoriented and you can't hear, and like everything's happening. You're probably in pain. All these things are happening, but you can't hear anything. And so it's terrifying, especially because all you can see is what's on the screen. So it's like you don't know who's around them. You don't know what's going on. Is someone like 5 feet away from them about to like kill them or kidnap them? Like you have no idea because you can't hear anything. It's so disorienting not having that. It's like a lack of control and awareness.
Which
and
is
it's
absolutely
because of
what
the
they're
sound.
feeling as well. And I think the sound just puts you exactly in the same space that these
Yep.
characters, as these real men in this story, were.
Well, and if anything, we are more aware than they are because we have clear sight of what's happening and they probably don't. And even if they are, like when you're in shock, it's like you may see things, but you don't process things the
Yeah.
same. And so since that's not happening to us, we have more awareness than they do. And that's just chilling to think about. So thank you, Roxy, for your comedic break. Thanks.
But I remember
Anyways.
having the thought in the middle of that big blast and all of the sound where I would see a couple of characters got up at different moments when they finally kind of regained consciousness and like were being able to process what happened and that they need to
Go
the
and get to safety.
GTFO
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
get back to cover. And I remember having the thought of like, wow, like being knocked out from that blast and having like that be like the peaceful moment. Like that just that big thing just happened to you. And now here you are at a moment of like peace where you don't have to be fighting. You don't even realize kind of like the ignorance is bliss of it all. And then you just like, as you start coming to, and then everything starts catching up to you about, oh yes, that just happened. I don't know who the people I came into this fight with are. I don't know if they're alive. I don't know if I'm injured. I think that that whole scene is just done so well to encapsulate just how and why they feel confused. I thought that I remember that whole scene in my thoughts very vividly about that. I think that was a really well done part
I
of this
agree.
movie among dozens of great things of this movie.
Absolutely.
But going on, and I only continue to go on because a lot of our stuff is on both. A lot of our pros are
Yeah, the
the
same.
same. So I also said the visuals and effects of this movie look really great. The set design is, I would say, simple. It's just a basic Iraq town. So it's very bare walls. Furniture's pretty bare. So even though it's not stunning, it's not super meant to be, I would say. And they show pictures of what the building looked like, and it's pretty dang accurate, I would say.
I agree.
So
And I will say, there's a scene in the beginning, visual wise, where it's like a nighttime scene, and I was almost like a little bit worried because I was like, I can't see anything at all. I hate when like movies and TV shows do this. I'm looking at you, Game of Thrones and House of Dragon. However, in this movie, I can see enough to tell what's going on, and it's not long, and you're not hearing things and like missing facial expressions. You see everything you need to see and process everything you need to process. Unlike Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, when they've had a lot of complaints for theirs, it's like prolonged scenes where their characters are talking to each other and interacting and things are happening, and you can't see it. You can't see it. And that's not the case in this movie. So it was
Yeah.
almost like a con for me, but like what they did with it, I was like, no, I don't have any
also,
complaints
I would say
now.
that's a lead in, because that I would say is right before they start catching up and making it a real time movie.
Yeah.
They have the opening sequence, and then they have the lead up into the place where they have the mission is
Yes.
starting, and then they're in this mission. Once the morning hits in that house, it is a real time movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I think also just with the idea of being in like as close to the experience, they also were in the dark and were,
No, yeah, and I think it was purposeful, and
Yeah.
it was used well.
Yeah,
Unlike
absolutely.
some others. So.
But some big visuals I really loved are whenever they did what they called a show of force, which is essentially whenever they are under heavy fire and they have a air vehicle come through really close to the ground, and it eventually does this huge whoosh. And
It makes
brings
a
up all of the
very loud
sand, and
sound.
it's this huge sound,
Yeah.
basically with the intent of, I'm guessing to throw up dust is a part of it, but mostly just to show that
Disorient you.
they have forces in the area that they can be using against you. Back off.
Yeah.
And I think they did that really well whenever they did that. And I think the visuals of that, the first one specifically, oh my gosh.
And they did it 3 times, and to me, it never felt like too much at all. It felt very necessary every time they did it. Like, it could have been a thing where it felt repetitive, or like, especially since it's show of force, it could have come off as like okay, we get it, like you've done this 2 other times now, but it didn't come off like that at all. It was very like, yeah, this is happening.
The time to use it.
Absolutely. It felt very appropriate every single time. So, and especially if that's, based off real events, good for them because they timed that really well.
So, and then there are some visual effects from injuries that characters have, and those are all done. I think it's all really brutal, and nothing ever feels unreal. So it all really works in the movie's favor to really make us feel unsettled and feel so scared for our characters, the ones that are alive and the ones that are injured and the ones that are dead, and seeing what they do to show what they look like after they're passed with horrible weapons being used against them. It's all, I think, very, I don't even know what exactly the right word to use is, but they successfully convey the graphic and the just brutalness of it all really well.
Well, and there's this one scene, and again, it's hard to say you liked anything because it was so like dark that you're like, I didn't like it. I wasn't happy what was happening, but it was done really well, and it was very powerful. I think that's probably the word to use, is powerful. Where there's this one scene where this guy, he's dragging in his friend who the whole audience thinks is dead. Like, oh my gosh. And it slowly becomes this thing where it's like, is he dead? And his friend, because his friend's not acting like he's dead whatsoever. He's just like, okay, I'm checking your wounds. And his friend's just out. Okay, I'm doing this, like, whatever. And it's almost like this thing where it's like, oh my God, this is gut wrenching, because it seems like he's so disoriented that he's not even realizing that his friend is dead or whatever. And it's very powerful though. Again, it doesn't come off as like a comedic or funny thing at all. It's done very well. It's done very like where it seems very sad.
Yeah, because it's the idea, I believe, is that like you are a brotherhood and you're responsible for making sure that your brothers get out alive, as is their responsibility to you. So even though he doesn't know that, like, you're gonna act like he is until someone pulls you off, because that's your responsibility. So I think that whole aspect of it, I think, is beautifully done.
And I also noticed in that scene, I was wondering why they never checked his pulse. But I think that was, well, I wouldn't be surprised if it was intentional or just not thought about. But it
just
seems,
not shot.
Yeah, because like that feeds into what you were saying, is like maybe he didn't care. Maybe that he was just like, because people, their heart can stop beating, but then they still come back. And so it's more of that thing where I'm not giving up on this person. So maybe I don't even care to check their pulse. Yeah. So, yeah, that's very powerful.
So, and then also I put, it's the emotion throughout the movie. No one has a huge, like, no one monologues. No one has any kind of scene where they are saying the most well-written lines known to man, and then it's not even trying to have that.
No.
But because of that, I think the really real writing and the really real idea that this is something that really happened, I think the way that they portray emotion throughout these scenes is all really well done, and it's all in like visuals, the way they stand, the way it's mostly facial, I would say, and the way that they zone out, the things that they focus on, the way they say their lines. It's just, even though they're not, I would maybe say, even though they're not necessarily doing emotional actions, they still portray emotion really well.
I mean, again, it's like it's a documentary, except it doesn't ever feel like, oh, we're making a war movie. Like, here's our monologue to be like super powerful. Like, it never needs that, and it's never trying to be that. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to this whole movie that it doesn't need that to be one of the most. I mean, a lot of people are referring it to one of the most well-made war movies ever made, and I think
Which I haven't seen.
I haven't seen a ton.
ton.
I honestly think this and American Sniper are some of the few, and I might be forgetting one or two.
I guess
others,
Civil War,
but-
even though that's not really based off a real one. So
I would
I don't
say
know if I
I
would
would.
call that.
It's tricky. I would say it being about a real war is different.
Yeah.
I would
I
say
agree.
that puts it in like these are its own separate category.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're just it's just so well done.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really great.
I
So,
agree.
any other any other pros that you have?
No.
Okay.
Well, and you don't have any cons, so I'll just
Yeah, it's because another thing I wanted to talk about, just in the vein of cons, is I don't know. You can't really pick this apart like you could other movies because so clearly the whole purpose of this was to be real and what that mission looked like. So you can't say, "Oh, I think they did too many show of forces," or
Yeah.
"Oh, the
there
characters
was
should
not
have
enough
done this
action
instead of that."
or blah blah blah.
And I've seen some people say that this is a movie that requires patience and that the action in saying stuff about the amount of action, and it's this is what it's like. It's not trying to be flashy.
No.
It's not trying to be
This is what happened.
it's not trying to be anything, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just trying to be authentic, I think is the best word for it.
Yeah.
And I think
It's not
feels
Hollywood
great.
trying to dramatize a story.
Yeah.
It is the story. So,
So I think it's in that vein. I think unless you've been in this situation, which we have not, I think it's really hard to have meaningful feedback or criticism on this because, and I think it's also a really good point of it's hard for me to put myself in that kind of situation. I know SEALs are kind of the highly trained of the military.
Yes.
So already to even be eligible to train as a SEAL is already a crazy feat to be able to do. And then to be in this situation, it's already so such a rare breed of people able to do that and be in this situation in the first place.
yep.
And then to go through this mission and this kind of extreme events, it's just I'm sure it's for some people it might be really easy to kind of remove yourself from that, but I just count myself lucky that I don't feel the need to give any notes, and nor would I can think of anything that I could possibly, but I don't know.
Yeah. I agree.
So you said I wanted to talk about this as well.
Okay, the very beginning is gonna throw you off a little bit because you're expecting war movie, and I kid you not, for a couple seconds I was like, did they put in the wrong movie? It was very jarring. And then I realized that it was a part of the film when they go from I think they start in the full aspect and then they shrink to square.
I think so.
I think so. And when it goes to the square, I'm like, okay, so they're watching this. I don't know. I understand what they were doing, that the soldiers were watching hot women with their ass out, trying to be, celebrating. I was like, and I know that happens. I'm not an idiot. I know that happens. But I'm just like, I wouldn't watch it. You can have an aerobics video, still have the same vibe of isn't this a war movie? That threw me off. And then you could see them laughing and celebrating, and then they do some of the moves later. And they don't need to, be wearing some of those outfits, but oh well, it's fine. It's just a nitpicky thing. It made me feel a little gross as a woman. I was like, I don't really want to watch this. So I'm glad this is a very short scene. And then it moved on.
Yeah.
But and I also feel like you didn't need to show that specific video to show that they're human and laugh and bond. So, I don't know.
I will say it's one of those things because even in the interview, I was curious if that was the video that they used,
Yeah.
and I don't think I ever saw a clear answer on if they just found and replayed that video,
Yeah.
if they refilmed something similar to that.
I don't know.
I think not to discredit your feelings at all, because I think I could definitely understand as a woman the idea of
You have like
that.
30 men just like clearly sexualizing women.
But I will say, in the vein of that, and just from what I can remember of the scene,
I will say it's like one woman in particular in her leotard. It's just her whole ass is out. I'm like, okay, nobody else's is like that. Everyone else is wearing a full leotard. Whatever.
and I will say that
I
I
don't know.
think I agree that could have been drawn back,
Yeah.
but I
It
think
would have played the same, you know, and
But I
just
think
not,
the purpose of it all, I really like the idea that it's them bonding over this video.
Yeah.
I-
And if it's the real video, then I'll, you know, it's fine. And again, that's a very nitpicky thing. Like, I almost didn't even put it on this, but it
But
did
I-
make me feel a little gross. So
But I
wanted
do
to-
really like the idea that like they're all bonding over this silly video, and they're all singing and dancing.
and they
to
bring it back.
and then
later.
they dance in the middle of that mission,
It's
which I
another
think
one of
is
those things. It's
well
like they're
done.
in the middle of literal like war, doing this really serious mission, and they're just like humping the air. Like, okay, like it's, I don't know. I mean, I thought that was funny. I was like, yeah, that's funny.
But
So-
I think, and I
They're
think it also
human.
sets. I think it's a great point because I've heard so many stories about like how people like find their like humanity, or like they're trying to like to connect to the life that they left behind, and it's a lot of communal stuff where it's like, oh hey, here's like this movie that my mom sent, or here's a video of my family doing something, and just everyone watches because it's the one
Yeah.
like thing that they have all to share communally. And
When didn't you say that it was like I thought either you said this or I heard this somewhere. I don't remember. Maybe it was from Grace Randolph. She did a video on this movie, but I heard somewhere that they used to play a video like that or the exact video before they had a big mission to like
that's what
hype
they were
themselves
saying.
up.
That's what I found
Okay.
in one of the articles, is that they played. The idea is whether it is this exact video or it's the video that this opening was based off of. They played
Yeah.
this before every mission as kind of like a hype,
Yeah.
bonding, like kind of a grounded "this is what we're fighting for" kind of thing.
Yeah.
For sexy leotard
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah.
aerobics.
Because I'm sure a lot of them, you know, they never mention if they, you know, are married to someone or have kids or whatever.
But I
But
think
I'm
that's-
sure everybody has like at least one person they want to come back
But
to,
I
whether
think
it's
that's-
friend or family or whatever.
I think with the idea that like such young people are being put into this thing, I
Yeah.
think that's another point of like they could die, and this could be like the closest they have. Like this could be what they have, like as far
It's,
as like
fun and
fun
youthfulness and yeah.
and kind of like
It's a good point, really good point.
because they might have never experienced that or had someone to come back to, but
Yeah.
finding like the value of what you're fighting for still, and like finding like drive and kind of like course correction, or like, you know what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
groundedness in this kind of
When it's
work.
really cool because it's almost like, I don't know about cool, but like powerful, because it's almost showing this video gives such a fun, youthful energy, and that's what they deserve to be living, and they're
Yes.
not because of war. And it's another thing is like, war sucks. It literally, even if you live, it takes away your life, basically, or at least parts of it.
Yeah,
Your
'cause-
youth.
I think in MASH, do you know the show MASH?
I know of it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there's
my
a,
family loves
there's
MASH.
a line that I've seen the most popular line I've seen used from that is, people say hell is war, but war is worse, because hell is where the people who deserve to be hurt go. War doesn't care who you are. And I think this
War
this
doesn't-
scene really reflects
yeah.
the idea that like these are people who should be living their own lives. They should be party rock antheming back at home. And I think, and even in the scene, I think it sets it so well that like the leader and Joseph Quinn's character Sam is in the back as the older people in the unit, and they're just kind of like smiling and nodding as all of
Yeah.
the younger ones are up at the front, being all
Jittery
arms around each
and-
other and jumping.
Yeah.
And I will say, a part of this opening scene, I think also reminds me, my brother, he enlisted straight out of high school. And I can't remember if it was a video or if my parents just got an audio recording, but him and the people he was in the service with, they sent either an audio or a video of them, his entire like unit, hardcore singing to Let It Go from Frozen, because he was in there like right around the time that had its first huge surge. And so it was just, it gives me the same vibes of these young men.
Oh my god, that would have been
And-
hilarious. I know Frozen had not come out yet during the Iraq War, but like something came out during then. Oh, what? I don't even. Ooh, let me look up what movies. Actually, okay, it's okay. You could continue.
Yeah, but it's just really nice to see something that like bonds them all. That's like reminding them of home. And I think in this situation, they pick a video that is provocative. I think that is what it is. I'm sure that they bonded over much more, like probably borderline pornographic stuff. But...
Lilo and Stitch came out.
Oh my god, what is it? Hawaii roller coaster ride.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
That's funny, but yeah, I don't know. I think
They could have been dancing to anything, y'all.
I really had the thought whenever we were first having the conversation about that video. I was like, honestly, I feel like they could have been like that way to most music videos.
Right? Just something to hype them up, just something fun, like Let It Go. Like that's just that's
just love
actually
that.
hilarious thinking
Yeah.
about like dressed in like the military outfits, like grown men just like dancing. I love that, and I love that for them.
Yeah.
That's not me making fun of
It's
them.
real-
That's
it's-
great. They
It's
deserve
really
that.
fun.
Yeah.
I think it's just something really special.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna go ahead and
You
get
ready?
more into the spoiler talk.
Okay.
What's our time doing right now?
45.
Woo! Okay. So let's go ahead. So this is a warning. We're going to get more into spoiler talk for this movie. Like we said, we highly recommend seeing this in theaters if that's something you feel that you'd be comfortable with. I
Yeah.
would think you would be able to tell by now if you would or not, if you're still listening to us. But definitely just make sure you're aware of the content.
Yeah.
It's very...
If you go
it's
on
very unapologetically
IMDb,
gruesome.
it'll have like a rating and why it's rated that. So,
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
take a look at that if you're wondering if this is something for you.
and it'll usually be specific because people will leave comments of like, this guy gets his leg cut open. You know, like it'll be very specific usually. So, if you're worried about that, it's probably easier to read it and decide if that's
Yeah.
okay before watching it, of course.
But
so.
if you think that, like, I think it's definitely worth trying to see if this is something you can watch.
Yeah.
In a theater, I think it totally deserves to be seen that way.
All right, so spoiler talk.
Yep. We're gonna go ahead and start breaking it down by cast.
Yep.
So I think we should start with who is arguably the main character. It's much more of an ensemble film, but this
Absolutely.
is the character Ray. He is the character who is also the actual writer and director of the show
Okay.
or movie. So he was, you remember him, he was the initial comms guy. He was the one that Kit Connor's character, who was Tommy, came up. He was like, hey, and he's like, hey. And then goes back to doing what he was
Yeah.
doing. I think he feels, I would say, a lot more like the main character. Obviously, he has the most creative input to this project. So I think they do a really good job of getting into his head throughout the stuff that he's doing in the movie. And I think, for me, some of the most powerful parts of his character throughout this, I really loved the way he was doing comms initially. He would talk directly to the leader, and then the leader would ask for this specifically, and he would be the one to ask up the command line for what to report, what they want, what they need. I think he did all of that well. I think the jargon and the way that the entire ensemble like works within this military like slang and jargon, I think they all do that really well. It never feels forced or like they're saying stuff that they
Scripted,
don't understand.
yeah.
It all feels really real and authentic.
Yeah. Well, and I think he has a really subtle performance. I like after he gets off comms, I feel like I don't remember him talking a lot, but you still know what he's thinking and feeling. And I think that's not always easy to do, and
I
he
think
does it
'cause
well.
he was one of them, because I remember he was one of them in the blast, and so
Yeah.
he was a big part of the waking up getting reoriented,
Yep.
seeing who needs help, and then dragging them in. And then wasn't he the one who had that brutal shot of like going around the corner with dragging the person in, and then he hits
think
the
so.
wall, and then he starts trying to like turn it in so the guy's leg will turn, and then the leg gets stuck on the corner.
Ooh.
Ugh.
Isn't Ray the guy that helped
And
try
then
to
he's
put
the
the
one-
tourniquet on?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
I
We're
think
thinking.
that's why at least I'm connecting them. That's the same character, especially after that. IMD goes off.
When again,
IED.
IED. When again, like a lot of these scenes, he's not even saying anything. It's just everything in his face and everything. It's the directing too of what's happening, and it's just great. You don't need him to talk.
I remember at the IED, it was really difficult for me to kind of even figure out who I was looking at for like minutes at a time. I remember whenever it showed Joseph Quinn's character waking up and kind of coming to terms with the fact that his legs are cut to hell.
Yep.
I remember for the longest time being like, I can see your eyes, nose, and mouth, but you are covered in so much dust and sand and blood. I have no idea who I'm even looking
Who
at
you
right
are.
now.
Yep.
And
I
that's
remember that
just-
too.
That's just
Crazy.
like, and it feels so like purposeful in that who are you looking at? Like imagine being
You're just so covered in dirt, like
you almost like you're losing your identity
yeah.
to
To
this
war.
and it's I think that's just so executed well, so well, and then
And it
that
almost
brutal
brings up
corner.
that like it could have been anybody.
Mhm.
You just happened to
It
be
just
in
happens to
the
be
spot.
you, and it's- And then the way that okay, we'll get to Joseph Quinn's character. It's Sam.
He's amazing.
He does
in this
great.
movie.
But back to Ray. Another great moment I liked is whenever he first got back into the building after getting reoriented, dragging in his wounded and dead comrades back into the house, and then you hear he's still plugged into comms, and you just hear so many people talking, communicating, and then I really love when he's just trying to figure out how to help Elliot. Not Elliot. This one was Sam. He was with Sam most of the time.
Yes.
So he's trying to figure out how to help Sam, and he just hears the communications going crazy back and forth, and then he unplugs, which feels like a crazy choice. Not crazy, but a really bold choice, because he was the one
Right.
who was communicating to them, and like it clearly gave off the impression that that was his job.
Yeah.
And now he's gonna stop doing that so he can focus on his wounded brother.
And again, it's like Will Poulter's character, who's kind of like the main leader, and he's the one that gives the directions and controls everything. It's very similar to when he just has that complete switch of, because he starts to talk in like a very raspy voice, which may partially be because of the dust, might also be a choice he made as an actor to be like, I'm literally losing my voice as a leader.
Hey Roxy, we see you this time.
So I don't know, I thought that was very powerful, and he literally like, you see him like deflate emotionally and just physically, like you just like fall apart.
Yeah.
So same with Ray, it's like I may be the comms man, but I'm not
But
the comms man anymore, because
I
this is
think
what I have to do now,
I
and
might
this is
have
what's
been sent
happening
here
to
to
me.
be comms, but I'm a part of this brotherhood
Yeah.
first. I think that was a really great moment of that.
Yeah.
And then him staying with Sam, like you said, he tried to do the tourniquet. That wasn't working, so he had to press right into his leg with his own knee. And then Will Poulter's character, Eric, came
Finally
up
comes through
and did
and
the tourniquet for him.
or comes to whatever.
So, and then I think those are my favorite parts of his character throughout that.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, and
I
then
agree.
and then whenever the other squadron came into the building with them, and then they kept accidentally kicking Sam's feet.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, that was just.
He played that really well. Where
But
it was almost like the audience. We were like, dude, what are you doing? This guy's bleeding out because of his legs, and you're constantly being sloppy, and you're not the one who just had a bomb go off right next to you. You shouldn't be as disoriented as us. We're not even running into his leg. You're running into his leg multiple times, and then later he pushes him around. He's like, no, you'll be okay. You'll be good. I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody like punch this guy. Like he's gotta chill out, because this is a serious moment, and he's almost like treating it like child's play. It's just ridiculous.
Another.
I'm sure that. Sorry, Dust. I'm sure that's realistic too. I'm sure there's always.
I'm sure that's directly
some
from
people
it,
like that.
'cause
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Oh my god, that would be so frustrating though. I would literally like see red because I'd be so mad that someone's doing that intentionally or not to my brother. Essentially,
Yeah.
like that's what they are to each other. So.
And then I think it's also important to acknowledge who this movie was made for, and that is Elliot, who is in the movie played by Cosmo Jarvis. As we said earlier, he was popularized as the American
Shogun.
from the Shogun series. And I think, did you watch that, right?
I have not actually.
Okay, spoiler alert.
Sorry.
He is him and the female.
Oh, and spoiler for any of y'all that haven't seen Shogun.
Oh, I'm just saying that him
Okay.
and the female supporting actress who won the Emmy for that show, they share a plot line.
Okay.
She's his interpreter for the Shogun leader that
Okay.
you're following, and they have the best part of that entire show.
Okay.
So he had a very
To
strong
watch it, I know.
debut for me with that show. And I know a lot of
he's
people,
great in this film.
A lot of people love Shogun a lot. I wished I loved it as much as everyone else did, but I
Okay.
loved their storyline. If the
Okay.
entire show was around their storyline, I would have absolutely adored it. I cannot speak enough praise about those two actors and what they did in that show. And I think unfortunately, just due to what happens to Elliot in real life and what they're portraying, he's out for a lot of the movie
Yeah.
because he is the second victim of the IMDb that survives the blast.
IED.
IED. I keep saying the wrong thing. IED. And so he's unconscious for a long time.
He's
and
the one that
we
the-
kind of think is
we think is dead. The Michael. How do you say his last name?
Gandolfini. Gandalf?
Gandolfini. Okay, cool. He's the one that Michael Gandolfini's character, Lieutenant McDonald. Is that what it is?
Yeah, and I get all
Okay.
of these names off of IMDb for the
Okay.
most part. So,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't remember all of the ranks of these soldiers. So, if we're getting
Sorry.
it wrong, our apologies. The best we
Yeah.
have currently is from the IMDb list.
Yeah. But that character thinks Elliot is dead. Well, I guess he doesn't act like he is. We think he's dead, but
Just with
because
how
he's not moving or breathing. But the other guy, I mean, he's like, okay, I'm gonna take your wounds. I'm gonna do a blood check. I'm gonna do this. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on it. And again, he's not giving up on his friends. So
And then I
Yeah.
think I really liked, and then we also see Elliot in like the real soldier who came on set to film.
yes,
On the set that they filmed, and
right at the end of
it's
the
just
movie.
so cool to see him so involved. And then he had the picture with the entire cast where they were flipping off the camera.
He was
and I think
flipping
it
it,
was-
yeah.
I think that was so cool.
Again, very, very human. Very like.
Yeah, it's
I just
very-
love that.
It's such a fun. It seems like so well spirited off camera, and then for this whole thing to be about recreating the timetable for him because he doesn't remember it. I think you can see why, because he's unconscious for a good part of the actual mission. But I really liked at the beginning, you see his character taking the sniping position and watching the building. That
He's
they
so
think,
good at building that tension. I mean, and also like the sweat. Every time like a little bead dropped, I was like, oh my gosh. First of all, I can't even imagine like focusing with one
saying that
eyeball.
still for
Yeah.
so long. Sorry,
Oh my
got away from the mic.
gosh.
But I think that whole
Crazy.
sequence is done really well. He has his assistant sniper with him, Frank, played by Taylor John Smith. I think
Wasn't given a lot to
his
do.
best
but
scenes are definitely with Elliot in that
Yes.
first scene when they're kind of trading out the sniping and tracking
Yeah.
all of the people going in and out of the building that they think the bad guys are in, and the way they identify targets and they communicate with like the overhead satellite images and tracking everyone. It's all just, I think, really well done, and you can feel them really building up the anticipation of something is happening, and it's all done through his performance of, I see something happening and I don't like it. I have to maintain my composure and I can't overreact, but I have to acknowledge that these things are happening, and I'm worried for what that means for me and my brothers.
yes.
So I think that's all done really well. So then,
Do Joseph Quinn?
Yeah, absolutely. Joseph Quinn, we've talked about him. He plays Sam,
Phenomenal
who is
job.
the other injured party after the
Mm-hmm.
IED.
IED. He doesn't do much before that. I mean, he has a couple scenes, and I think he
has
even
the
does
one
those
line.
well.
I love the way he delivers
He's
that
just
one
like
line where it's like,
peeking
hey,
out the door.
You've been in that room for a while. Yeah,
I live in
here
here.
now. And I just
They're like, okay, we'll switch out. I just love it. That was done really well. Even when he was just like not saying anything and just peeking out the door, like it felt so like ready, serious. Like
And then-
it was. I don't know. It was played
and
really
then
well.
and then whenever the IED goes off, and he slowly comes to the realization that he's hit,
The adrenaline wears off, and he actually feels the pain
and then
of his legs
and then
now.
you see him start screaming, but you don't hear it because you still have the like ringing ears effect going on.
Yep.
And
And his
then
legs
it's
are on
just-
fire, and he's
Yes.
just like, oh my god,
And
oh my
it's
god, oh
just-
my god.
And
And he
then I
can't
was
even
just
like
dreading
move.
whenever we actually start hearing the audio, and then it like starts doing it where it's like all muffled, and it's just
Ooh.
chilling, and then it cuts hard to the people inside the house seeing him get dragged in, and you hear him full scream, and it is so upsetting.
Yep. And it's long too. It's very prolonged.
Yeah,
So.
and then they
yeah.
eventually start like cutting the pants off of him to start getting the wounds tourniqueted and trying to get everything handled so he can get evac'd again.
And again, like
But-
it's when you're screaming that long as an actor, I imagine it would be very easy to just kind of tune out and just scream. But then it could come off as like scripted, like
Yeah.
you're just screaming to scream. But it never felt like that. It felt like he was really in that much pain, like screaming in agony.
Yeah.
It always felt very purposeful and intentional, and it never came off as like inauthentic at all.
Yeah, it was. And then like
always
that
chilling.
partnered with the
Or
way
even-
that the design of like what those wounds looked like on him.
Yep.
Like I said, everything just really comes together for this movie to just make all of the actions and the way that these performances come off feel so like real. Like that is what you would imagine doing in a situation like that, even at best.
Yeah.
So I think gives so much. And then there's that
Yeah.
scene that you see from the trailer where we have two wounded, we need them evac'd, and he has that. Am I one of them? Who's wounded? And I think that
Yeah.
I think is so. I love the inclusion of that line because it's him worried about
Yeah.
himself, and then also who else is injured. Like
Yeah.
if it's not me, I need to be helping. And like the adrenaline that he's going through, I think he gives off those lines so well.
Yeah.
Going on to the leader of the initial SEAL team that was sent out there
Will
is Eric,
Poulter.
played by Will Poulter. He, I think, does really great. He does a lot of the jargon and order giving, and at least I would say
The first half.
And I think you can really see the camaraderie that he has with all of the men on his team. I think you can feel that he's the leader. Like I said in that opening scene, him and Sam are in the back just kind of smiling at everyone, just kind of living life together before they start going into this super traumatic mission for them all.
Yeah.
And then I love the way you see him kind of start like getting overwhelmed with everything.
And just shutting down.
Yeah, and and the line of like, what do we do? I don't know. 'Cause,
Oh my gosh. The way he delivered that was so like
And then another part I really liked is whenever the second SEAL team comes in, led by Jake, who's played by Charles Melton. And I loved the scene where he comes in, he starts taking charge because he came in with his team. He's making sure everyone's ready for that second med evac so that the injured can get out of here and go get help. And I love that he's making sure everyone does everything. He says, everyone, shut the up.
yeah.
Listen to me. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to get these men help. And then I love when he clocks Eric in the other room and he comes down and it's not, you need to step up. It's not what the hell is happening. It's not anything. It's
He never guilts him.
how
He just
were
like
you
assesses
checked?
it.
Are you okay?
He just
And it's-
assesses the situation and moves forward.
And it's like connecting like from like team leader to team leader.
Yep.
And him being, I can't, and Eric saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm not, like, I'm messed up right now. I cannot lead this team. And he doesn't, and he's just like, I
Okay.
will take this from you. You do what you need to do.
Yep.
We will get everyone taken care of. And
They
I think,
play that really well. And I think that's important too because it's not like it's his fault. It's what happened.
Yeah.
It's you cannot in any possible way control your response to a traumatic event. That's what happened to him in the traumatic event. That could have happened to anyone in that situation, leader or not leader. And so you can't help that. And being a good leader, taking over like Jake was, Charles Melton's character, you have to assess what you have to work with.
Yeah.
And he realized he's not there. He's not going to be able to, do what he was doing. So let's just make sure he's okay and let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's see what he can do. Let's see what else we can do. So
Yeah, absolutely. And then I heard in Grace Randolph's review, she says the other team comes in, they don't have to tell you who the leader is. You can tell as soon as he walks in. That's Charles Melton. He does a great job of just exuding military leadership, I think.
Yeah.
As the person in charge, as the person who's going to try and make sure everyone gets through it. I think
Yeah.
he does a great job there.
Yeah.
And then also with his team coming in, I really liked the comparison of seeing the team on radar as these like white dots coming in. You see them like knocking out enemies, and you see the enemies just fall on the ground flat, whereas they were dots originally.
Yeah.
And you see them making their way through the blocks, and then it cuts to what it actually looks like, and it goes from this like really smooth thing with like casual lines from like intelligence saying what's happening, saying where bad guys are, to this loud and crazy, like dusty and
Yeah.
like war scene. And I think that was all really well done to show like, yeah, these are the people who are making the commands and orders.
Yep.
Here's what they're dealing with. I
Yep.
think
And
the
they do it
highlight
so
of
well.
that was really well done.
You can see those forms. They've practiced them. They know it. It's like the back of their hand. It's like a family. You don't have to say, you go here, you go here. They know where to go and they know what to do.
Yeah.
And if something needs to change, they know how to figure that out very quickly.
Absolutely.
So,
Moving on to
Tommy.
Tommy, played by Kit Connor. This is the biggest, well, maybe not the biggest. He was recently just on Broadway as Romeo in Romeo and Juliet.
Is this his first feature film?
He was in Rocket Man as a kid.
Right. Well, I feel like this is more like as grown up,
Yeah, I would say this is the most high
since
caliber
Heartstopper,
movie that
like
he's done.
people are like, oh yeah, that's the same person.
Mhm.
Let's cast him in more things.
Yeah,
So,
I was very excited to see him cast here.
Mhm.
I hope, because I'm a huge Kit Connor fan,
Mhm.
I really hope that this continues to build open
Yeah.
doors for him. I
Mhm.
think that everyone in this movie is super talented.
Yeah.
This is his first big movie as a
He
grown
definitely doesn't
professional
seem
actor.
out of place. He doesn't seem like a
absolutely
weak
not.
link. Like he fits in his
American
part
accent,
really well.
I think, is nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Very
think
nice.
I think another like A24 movie for him would be really cool
Yeah.
to see after this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe as more of a supporting within like a basic ensemble would be really cool to
Yeah.
see. But within this
Mhm.
movie, he plays a more supporting role than I think I expected after
Mm-hmm.
the kind of name he's built for himself.
Yeah.
So, but like
But
I said, everyone
it's
is
it's
going really
based-
great here. So,
Yeah.
for
And
what
if
he
it's
does-
based off real life, then that's the role he played,
Yeah.
So.
And I think that his character specifically really shows, like, he's the newbie. Like, he's
Yeah.
the one where everyone's like, yeah, look at that new guy energy he has.
Yeah.
And I think, and there's a couple of times where he's, like, just kind of staring off into space,
Mm-hmm.
like, and then people have to snap him back in. I think
Yeah.
he is such a great highlight to how young these young men are whenever
Yeah.
they come in and have to deal with all of this. So I think his character highlights the tragedy of that really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And then
We kind of already talked a little.
we talked a little bit about Lieutenant McDonald, played by Michael Gandolfini. He is playing a role in Daredevil Born Again as someone on
One hand man for Fisk.
Fisk's like mayoral
Right
team.
hand man. That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking of. Mm-hmm.
And we've watched him in that show, and I think he plays such an... I don't know if the character's necessarily underwritten, but it feels like there's some kind of disconnect between the performance he's giving
He was
and
just
what
miscast.
the role is trying to be.
Yeah, because I really like some of the lines. I just hate the way they're delivered, and
Yeah.
I hate who's delivering it. But he's great
But
here.
he is
That's not
really
a problem
great
here.
There's
Mm-hmm.
He's also working communication. He's the one who calls in the show of strengths,
Mhm.
which every time he
Show
says
of
that
force.
line, it's like a show of force. You're right.
Yeah,
And
he's
He
really good at that.
he also is the one who helps Elliot whenever he comes in, and he has the scene with the I wrote it down, the morphine. and then
Right.
he tries to put it into
Oh,
Elliot's
and he
leg,
puts
and
it
then he
in his
accidentally
finger.
has it the wrong way, and he puts it into his thumb,
Mm-hmm.
and then throughout the rest of the thing, it's not a huge deal, but you can see him like his hand, and he's shaking it to,
Yeah.
because he has chemicals now in him that is,
Yeah.
I would imagine, messing up his senses and nerves
He
right
didn't.
now.
Yeah, he didn't need it, and so it would be messing him up.
Yeah, but he did much better here. I think if I was his management team, I'd look at the type of role that people are more receptive to him
Yeah.
in, and see if maybe we can steer him more towards that direction.
I wonder. I feel like he is pretty funny, which. I mean, but he also does good at being serious here. So I don't know. Maybe because I was gonna say maybe get him in a comedy and see if he works there, but I mean he's also, but he's just not gonna be. Maybe it is partially the character he is that's being written, because the character is written as like, in one episode, an amateur, like he's not doing
he comes
well,
off
he's
as
not
as a
smart.
pathetic character who's in Daredevil. He comes off
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
pathetic character who's trying to like fit some big shoes for this
Yeah.
big man. But here he plays like this
A
like,
guy who clearly knows
grounded
what he's
professional
doing.
man's man,
Mhm.
and like this person who's
So,
good at what he does.
Yeah.
He makes a mistake for sure,
Mhm.
which I think also grounds us into the reality of like they're doing their best.
Mhm.
So it's I think it's gonna be really interesting to see what he does next after these two being in such
Mhm.
close quarters.
Yeah.
Be
Just
very
try different
fascinating
things.
to see what his next role is.
Yeah, because maybe he doesn't even know what works for him. Just try different things.
Yeah. Going on to that, I wanted to quickly talk about what we think awards circuit this could potentially look like. I know there was a lot of
Yes.
talk. Alex Garland's Civil War came out around this time last year, and there was talk about what awards that movie would be nominated for. By the time award season came around, it was not brought up at all.
Yeah.
And I think
But this is much better film.
this
so.
is a much better
Fingers
film. I will
crossed.
say I think Warfare visually stunning.
Mm-hmm. I think definitely sound is its best chance.
I think-
for sure, but also some cinematography potentially.
I think cinematography, it depends on the year we have.
Yeah.
I think
Same with like.
because it's so grounded, it's not focusing on doing anything huge and groundbreaking. It's focusing on trying to be real, which is that going to immediately flag in people's memory whenever they're comparing all of the movies of the year.
I don't know.
As I said, I think
Yeah.
it depends on the
Because
movies
like
that you
Challengers 2 also came out in April of last year and also got ignored, and that was a really good film. So it was a competitive year, but still, like it could have gone. Also had great sound, so we'll see.
Yeah,
But I also put, just for fun, I put Joseph Quinn here because I would love, and this is in all seriousness, but it's in fun a little bit because I don't think it's gonna happen. I would like to see him in supporting actor, especially if it's a slow year. If it was like last year's supporting actor category, he should easily be able to get in, quite frankly. But I don't know. We'll have to reassess down the line. But, you
Joseph
know,
Quinn does
early
have-
talks.
Do you think Joseph Quinn
I think
definitely does have one of the most memorable from this movie?
I think so, too. I don't know who else I would put, honestly.
It's really difficult because it's such an
It's such
ensemble.
an
It's like
even
with the White
cast.
Lotus where you don't have any leads; they're all in the ensemble.
But even with the White Lotus, you have some clear standouts there, and I don't know.
I think
Everyone does a
Joseph
really
Quinn
good
is
job
definitely
here.
one-
He just like inched out for me a little
Yeah,
bit more
that's
than
so
everybody
fair.
else. It's not
He's just
by a
const-
mile
he's
like
just
White Lotus,
constantly
but
giving emotion.
Yeah.
At that point,
Mhm.
it's like
He's given a
grounded,
lot to
and
work
then
with.
He's giving a lot.
Mhm.
So that's fair. Regardless,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would honestly really like to see the Academy and the Golden Globes, and maybe like looking at, can we bring people who are fans of this movie into these kind of circles? I think there's a lot of conversation about the types of stories that Hollywood is able or willing to tell. I think there's the kind of popular idea right now of like separating liberal and conservative storytelling.
Sure.
This is still an A24 movie, so this is in Hollywood. So it shows that
But it's
Hollywood
a
is
war
capable
movie,
of
so
making
it's-
a really good movie about military. I think
Yeah.
I would love to see this kind of push more towards increasing the amount of people working on these movies and bringing in conservative talent to tell stories that everyone can like learn and hear and take away from. I think
Yeah.
I would love for that to be a takeaway from this movie.
Shall we move on to Rotten Tomatoes?
Absolutely. So the reception to this movie. Have you already seen the scores?
I've only seen critics and
Okay.
cinema scores. So I
Okay,
don't know
okay.
audience, IMDb, or Metacritic.
Okay. I'll pull those up. So Cinema
I'm
Score
excited.
was a big deal for this movie because it has an A-,
Mm-hmm.
which has it tied as the highest A24 Cinema Score, tied with The Iron Claw.
Yes, which is also a phenomenal film.
Also a
So,
phenomenal film, also really aimed at masculinity
Yeah.
and like men's roles.
Ooh.
And I also love The Iron Claw. I think that is one of the best movies of that year. It is honestly.
Yeah.
People
Oh,
talk
and that
about
also got shut out from the Oscars,
that was
guys.
crazy to me. I think it's interesting.
It came
that
out
year,
too late, honestly.
People were saying that like Oppenheimer was the opposite to Barbie. Like thematically, Iron Claw was the opposite to Barbie. And they like tackled
Okay.
the same conversations but for masculinity and femininity like in the reverse. And I
okay.
think that was a really fascinating
Mm-hmm.
like those two like that was one and number two of my favorite movies that
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think it's interesting that they both talk about like gender roles from
Mhm.
both perspectives, I think.
Yeah.
And they both do really great jobs at looking at that. But
Absolutely.
I think it's
Mhm.
interesting that like the manly men or like the men skewed projects are what are doing really good for A24, especially
Mm-hmm.
considering the amount of output they put out.
Mhm.
It feels weird that this is their high, that they only have had 2 at this rate so far.
Right.
But
So let's guess
Okay.
stuff. Since
So,
we are
I
short on time.
remember what the audience score was for Rotten Tomato
Okay.
and the critic as well. But
The critic I know last I saw was like 92 or 93, something like that.
Okay.
Is it still similar?
yes, it is 93.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
Audience, I'm going to guess. Ooh, I don't know. Because sometimes what you hear on Twitter of people complaining doesn't translate to reviews, and sometimes it does. I don't know. I'm going to say 90. 90.
90. It is. You're really close. It is 92.
Okay, good. Good. I was a little worried because people were assuming what this movie was going to be about without
Yeah,
You know.
without watching it.
without watching it, without watching clearly any of the trailers or marketing. I'm like, okay,
And so,
you don't know what this film's about.
what do you think IMDb score is?
8. Solid 8. Or 8.5. I'll say 8.5. I'll be optimistic.
Okay. IMDb has it at a 7.9
Ah,
out of 10.
I should have said 8. But
Yeah, you were really
yeah.
close with 8, but I still feel like that's a little low. I think,
is a little
especially
low.
considering Rotten Tomatoes is so on top of it, or really
And
high.
cinema score.
And what do you think Metacritic is at?
In that case, because that's from the same app. Isn't it out of 100? That's what Metacritic is?
Yes.
As well?
Yes,
I'll
Metacritic is a
say-
percentage as well.
75.
Really close. It's at a 76.
Okay. I did really good.
Yeah,
I'm going to congratulate myself on that.
you did great. You did great.
Thank you.
So the domestic opening was 8.3 million.
Yes, we both already found that out, so womp womp.
Yes. Ooh, let
No
me-
guessing today.
Yeah, I want to see
for
what
those-
the global is. I'm curious how it does.
It
overseas.
actually has not gone international. That is what it
Interesting.
makes. So
Okay.
that goes on to our next conversation of what do we think it's going to make, because its budget is 20 million and it is not getting an international release apparently, or at least not this weekend, which doesn't really surprise me because it is a war movie that about
Around the
Americans.
American
So like
experience.
I understand why international wouldn't get a release, but that's still, when we're talking about money,
Mhm.
box office, that's still where you get the bulk of your money.
Yeah.
So if they don't have that, that's not great.
Like, I feel like
That makes me worried.
I understand not releasing it everywhere in the world, but I feel like
Some
there are some
places.
like European countries that can do decently because war is a decently
know.
shared experience among the world.
Yeah.
So like,
I don't know. Maybe they don't want to get involved. Maybe they're like Switzerland. I call Switzerland.
But
Anyways.
so the budget you said was 20 million. It has made
Yes.
8 million. So
Mhm.
it's
But it's made 8 million in a crowded weekend, and Drop domestic wise made like 7.9 or something like that. So it made less than Warfare. So
I would love.
That's not nothing.
I really want this movie to.
but then Sinners comes out next weekend, so.
It continues to be crowded. I really wish this movie found another weekend to come out.
Although
Like-
I will say, I wonder if Sinners is gonna have. Because I'm very interested if Sinners has any sort of religious themes whatsoever and what they are, because it is coming out on Easter weekend.
But then if there was, you'd think they'd be pitching that for an Easter movie to go see.
I don't know. Well, I mean, like it
Or, like, have
Sinners,
some
the
kind of
name
connection.
kind of suggests maybe, because that's what I'm wondering is what audience is it gonna pull? Is are the conservative audiences gonna go towards Warfare, or are they gonna go towards Sinners? I don't know. Or you have like the King of Kings movie coming
The
out
King of
that
Kings
just came
movie,
out,
and did
and
really
that's
good
doing
this
pretty well.
weekend.
So.
I think that
I
one's
don't know,
too.
man. I think it's a little crowded in the male territory. Well, even I think I saw this video where The Amateur was also having a lot of male pull. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of pull from the male audience
Mhm.
with these movies in theaters right now. I would say if I had to guess what the worldwide box office was, I'm going to hope it makes a profit. So my guess is going to be optimistic in that, because I want this movie to do well.
Mhm.
And like I said, I think if this movie does well, there's a lot of great things it can do.
Mhm.
So I want it to make. I'm going to say 38 million.
That's not a profit, but it's okay.
20? Oh,
Yeah,
fine.
'cause
40.
Typically, you have to like more than double your budget.
Okay, I don't know.
Because I was
I
gonna
don't think
say,
it will.
I know I don't think it will either. I was gonna say 40 million.
Okay, I'll still. I don't want to be less hopeful than you.
Because I think I looked at the Paddington and Peru numbers, and they domestically they did like 12 million in their opening weekend. I don't know. I looked at something and then I was like thinking what I would maybe guess on this one, and it was like 40 million, 35 to 40 million. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. It needs that international. I'm telling
really
you,
does.
it's not a reflection of this
I'm gonna go
quality
30.
of this movie.
I'm gonna go.
but
I'm gonna stick with 38. I feel like just
Okay.
with how crowded it is and how similar some of these movies are.
I
trying
will
to
say
appeal
though,
to.
it had a lot of hesitation from people, but it's had great word of mouth, and everyone, audience and critics alike, seem to really like it. So we'll see. We'll see if
I'm
the
very
word of mouth
interested to see what
helps.
the second weekend goes for this, because I feel like of the movies that came
Sinners.
out this weekend, this and King of Kings. King of Kings, I would not be surprised if it has an increase specifically
Yeah.
for Easter
Mhm.
weekend.
I think Amateur will probably have a decrease.
I would.
I hope
assume
this one
Amateur's
has
gonna
an
have a big
increase.
drop. I think that and Drop
Mhm.
are gonna go way down.
Yeah, me too. But that's good for Warfare.
Love
Hopefully.
it for Warfare. Hopefully,
Hopefully.
I really hope this holds a little longer.
Yeah.
So, and did you write those down? I'll write them down.
Okay. I was trying to, and then my marker was out of ink. So.
You gotta get more
sorry,
markers.
sorry. But is that? I think that's it.
Yeah, that is everything we had.
Yeah, we're gonna make The Last of Us, or like an episode on the season 2, episode 1 thing soon, and then we'll make a Daredevil Born Again finale episode soon.
Very
So
exciting.
keep a lookout for that.
And then next weekend
Yeah.
we get to watch Sinners, which
Sinners.
we're also very excited about.
Yeah,
So,
it'll be fun.
oh, also I don't know if we specifically said this, but Warfare is currently my favorite movie of 2025.
Me too.
I currently,
We're both in agreement though. Like it's probably gonna be
I
Sinners
would-
next week.
which does not take
I mean,
away how great this
no,
movie
no,
was.
no.
It
But,
is-
like, it's
these are two
Sinners.
very different movies, but Sinners
You got
just,
100% on Rotten Tomatoes still.
it is
So
very impressive how well Sinners is being
I
received
mean
so
that's
far.
yeah. Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan are an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
So
So,
and Haley
but you
Steinfeld.
know what? Warfare has
We'll
definitely
see.
earned some flowers
Absolutely.
for sure, regardless. So
cross our fingers it'll be on the top 10 at the end of the year. So
I have faith. I did.
Yeah.
I did give it personally a 10 out of 10 score for
oh
me.
okay.
I
I gave
the
it
longer it
8
sits,
out of 10.
I could possibly see it going down like a
Mm-hmm.
0.5. I would be shocked if I even go as far as to eventually drop it down to a 9. I
Mm-hmm.
really think this is such a well-made movie.
Okay. I gave it 8 out of 10. I might do 8 now. I don't
But
know.
also, I like I said, it really hits me emotionally and some really
Mm-hmm. That's
personal
valid.
things for me. So,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah.
think that, like I said, a lot of people can have that as well throughout the US.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Thanks
those
for listening. Yeah.
those are our thoughts on the A24 movie
Yeah.
Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
So please, if you've seen it, let us know what you think about that movie. And yeah,
Yeah.
who do you
till
think
next
gave the
time.
best performance?
Oh yeah.
There's
If you
a
were
great
to have to
cast.
pick someone to put in supporting actor, who would you pick? My pick is Joseph Quinn. So,
I'll second
we'll
that.
see.
I would
Okay,
also put Joseph
yeah.
Quinn.
but who would you pick? There's some pretty good options here, I would say.
For
So,
sure.
yeah.
So thank you guys so much for listening to us yap. I am Luke,
I'm Alicia.
and thank you guys so much for listening to Not So Straight Nerds.
Bye.
Bye bye.